Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kircha. Coming up in today's newscast, Qatar threatens to cut off aid to the Gaza Strip.
A new Israeli app offers traveling parents a helping hand.
And we'll reveal some of the coolest Guinness World Records set by Israelis. Well, in the days since another 10 rockets rained down on southern Israel from Gaza, Qatari envoy to the Strip, Mohammed Al-Emadi, is announcing that his nation will have difficulties continuing its financing of the Hamas terror group-led enclave.
Qatar has been funneling $30 million per month since last March as part of an agreement to keep Gaza from financial collapse. And since 2012, Qatar is estimated to have spent over $1 billion on the Strip.
Well, to keep the money coming, Hamas sources say they will try to appeal the decision. They also explained that the deficit could lead to an explosion with Israel. At a rally on Monday, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar even waved around a gun, threatening to turn Israeli cities into ghost towns.
He also warns that the terror group has enough rockets to hit Tel Aviv for 6 months in a row, and that if Israel invades, Hamas will make them curse the day they were born. But many in the government are unfazed by Hamas's latest threats, with Labor leader Amir Peretz now repeating after Benny Gantz in calling on the government to give Gaza an ultimatum: demilitarize or face an overwhelming ground force invasion.
Similarly, Sderot Mayor Alon Davidi conveyed the feelings of the residents who are living in the city who have for years suffered under constant threat of rocket attack. And just this past weekend, they were hit again with one rocket even destroying a family home.
Davidi says that Israel is giving immunity to terrorists by not responding more seriously. Quote, "It's been high time for a while to put an end to this routine emergency reality via a wide-scale military operation in Gaza, including assassinating Hamas leaders." Moving on now to the east, Israel and Jordan have finally reached an agreement to conclude their latest conflict.
And the governments in Amman and Jerusalem made the declarations on Monday after months of deteriorating ties.
Ending 2 months of tensions and a near 40-day hunger strike, Israel and Jordan are announcing that 2 Jordanian nationals held in Israel will be returned to Amman by week's end. Heba al-Labadi and Abdul Rahman Miri were arrested in late August and early September as they entered into Israel illegally through the Allenby crossing, and they've been held under Israeli administrative detention ever since on suspicion of involvement in serious security violations. Specifically, al-Labadi, for one, allegedly met members of the Hezbollah terror group multiple times between 2018 and 2019. But Jordanian ties with Israel have soured dramatically in the wake of this and other recent disagreements. Amman even recalled its ambassador in Tel Aviv, Ghassan Majali, in protest over the detentions, while Jordanian Foreign Affairs head Nidal Ta'ani suggested taking a political prisoner of their own to place pressure on Jerusalem. But in any case, Israel has reached an agreement with Jordan regarding the exchange of Miri and Labadi, stating that Israel views the relationship with Jordan as a cornerstone of regional stability and will continue to act to ensure the region's security.
Now, the tensions with Jordan may finally be falling, but the neighborhood is still in crisis.
Between the resurgence of ISIS, the protests in Lebanon, and the revolving forces in Syria, there's still a lot left up in the air. So where does that leave Israel?
Well, joining us to discuss is former commander of the IDF's 8200 Intelligence Unit, Brigadier General Hanan Geffen. So our first question for you is about Lebanon. Israel has seen massive changes, and with the onset of all of these demonstrations in Lebanon, what is going to take place? Will Hezbollah continue to have the power that it has?
Yeah, usually these cases of insurgents, of the mass insurgents in this area are motivated by started with economical motivation.
Right.
And then it's taken a different trend. So this is what worries everybody in Lebanon. But we have to remember that Hezbollah is entrenched in Lebanon. It's a major force influencing Lebanon with the help of Iran and so and all. So it's hardly we can see a situation where there will be a major shift. But Hezbollah is worried because the trend in Lebanon right now is opposing Hezbollah. They don't know where it's end. As far as we can say today, they contain it. They can contain it. They didn't use a massive force yet, but they will use massive force, and eventually they will contain it if you look farther away. Anyway, it is alarming for Hezbollah. The same, by the way, is going to in Iraq. We see the same economical protests that are taking gradually a different turn. In Iraq is on very low level yet. We see 1,000 demonstrators. But the trend is alarming. It's against a major force. In Iraq, it's the Iranian force. In Lebanon, it's against the government, but with a twist to Hezbollah, to the force that Hezbollah is holding Lebanon.
Are the governments maybe looking at these protests as like a resurgence of the Arab Spring, so to speak?
It is the same, the roots are the same. The Arab Spring started with this kind of economical motivation, of economical bad situation, and then somebody jump on the wagon. We see it in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood, if you recall. The students started the demonstration in Egypt, and then the Muslim Brotherhood just jumped on the wagon. So this is what worries the regimes both in Iraq and in Lebanon. We see this, it starts, and then it's out of control. However, in the Middle East, we have to remember, we speak in Western terms, public demonstration. In the Middle East, the governmental force, the brutal force the government are using, they manage, in most of the cases, to stop it very brutally. They can contain it and stop it.
Right, that's why we're going to have to kind of wait and see what happens in Lebanon. But let's also talk about Hamas and obviously the Gaza Strip. We saw these recent tensions over the weekend with rockets coming into southern Israel. And now Qatar is saying, okay, we're not going to continue funding Hamas. What will the impact of that be if that happens, and how should Israel be responding?
Israel, as far as we can see, the last more than a year, trying to contain the situation in Gaza, because Israel is mainly preoccupied with the Iranian problems, with the instability in Syria, instability in other areas. So right now, the Israelis are Israel is trying to contain the situation. Hamas understand it, and more than Hamas is Jihad Islamic, which is more closer ally of the Iranians. They are supported by Iranian, driven by Iranian. So from time to time, they have to have these activities, either managed by the Iranians or local initiatives, just to create this kind of instability. For them, they are living on it. They're showing to their people that they are fighting for the cause.
Right, but you don't seem to be concerned that this is going to continue in a larger form.
They know it, and they're very careful not to pass a certain line, the red line that they believe Israel is holding. But it's not controlled by them, because one mishit, a family hit in Israel, God forbid, and then everything will change.
Then we're looking at a whole different situation. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, in other news, a new European criminal report for 2018 reveals that anti-Semitic attacks in Sweden are at an all-time high.
In fact, jumping up 53% from the previous year, Swedish Jews reported suffering 280 anti-Semitic hate crimes, 4% of the total crimes reported, despite making up just 0.2% of the population. Now, ILTV's Nittany Manson has the story.
But similarly alarming reports have come out all over the world, from the UK to France, Canada, and the US. Just this week, multiple Jews in the community of Borough Park, New York, were assaulted in a spree of attacks. CCTV footage shows the same few men driving around and getting out just to attack the Jews. Meanwhile, in Colorado, men dressed as Jews handed out Holocaust denial flyers at a mall. And following an FBI sting operation, 27-year-old Richard Holzer was arrested for plotting to bomb one of the state's oldest synagogues.
According to the complaint affidavit, Mr. Holzer self-identifies as a skinhead and a white supremacist. During the investigation, FBI agents became aware of racist, anti-Semitic, and threatening statements made by Mr. Holzer on social media. Mr. Holzer repeatedly expressed his hatred of Jewish people and his support of a racial holy war.
Holzer, a self-described white supremacist, was approached by undercover agents with whom he discussed his plans to attack during a busy Saturday service. And he's now facing up to 20 years on charges of attempting to obstruct religious exercise by force. While in light of these increasingly worrisome reports, EU Parliament member Caroline Edstadler says we need to increase security wherever Jewish life takes place. She also chairs the EU's working group on anti-Semitism, and explains that unfortunately there is a pressing need for this. We can argue about whether police in front of synagogues is good or bad, but it is clearly a necessity. She also adds that the EU should avoid making unilateral decisions that affect the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Decisions like the upcoming EU High Court's ruling on the labeling of Israeli settlement products.
Speaking of the upcoming Brussels decision, in just a week's time, the EU's High Court is highly expected to bar companies located in Jewish communities of the West Bank from labeling their products as made in Israel.
And many companies like the Psagot winery from Binyamin near Jerusalem are worried about the future of their business. Well, here now with more is founder and executive director of the Lawfare Project, Brooke Goldstein. Brooke, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So why are how Israeli products labeled such a big issue today?
That's a really good question. Why are Israeli products being treated in a discriminatory fashion when there are several countries all over the world that the United Nations has deemed to be, illegally occupying areas? The United States and Puerto Rico, Russia, China, all these countries are engaged in human rights violations and occupying disputed territories, according to the United Nations, and they're not being given the same treatment. I think there's only one answer, and if you look at the definition, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, quote, applying a double standard by requiring of Israel a different behavior that's not expected or demanded of other nations, end quote, is indeed discriminatory anti-Semitic treatment. So we have to ask the EU, why are they treating Israeli products this way? And in fact, when you look at the the Advocate General's non-binding opinion, which was released, I think this past June, it expressly states that he recommends the EU treat Israeli, aka Jewish products differently. You label them as a product from an Israeli colony. He recommends you treat Jewish products differently than you treat Muslim products, aka Palestinian products coming from made in Palestine is the label that he wants. That is clearly discriminatory. So I really don't think that the European Court of Justice is going to follow this type of reasoning by the Advocate General. And I also have to say that there's been a lot of fake news and misrepresentations of factual issues, of legal issues that are being spread, unfortunately, to the media. And it's very, very questionable. And I think that Israeli people need to know what the facts are.
Well, obviously, we hope that the ruling will not be approved. However, should the EU approve the banning of labeling settlement goods as Israeli, what is the biggest damage that will come out of that ruling?
Especially for, local businesses like the Psagot winery.
There are two very specific questions before the European Court of Justice. Number one, does EU law mandate the labeling of Israeli products from so-called disputed territories as coming from, quote, Israeli colonies? And the second question is, if not, are EU member states free to impose their own labeling? Now, the facts are clear. There is no EU law that mandates products from Israeli producers in the disputed territories be labeled Israeli colony. There is a non-binding notice by the European Commission, and that is exactly what Psagot was challenging. Now, if Psagot had never brought the case, the status quo would remain. There would be a non-binding European Commission notice that is being treated as binding by countries like France, that is being implemented now by countries like Germany, by countries like Belgium. It is simply incorrect that this notice was not being applied. So if Psagot had just sat there and done nothing, as opposed to exercise its legitimate right to avail itself of a court system to argue against discrimination, Israeli companies would have been targeted. Now, even if there is an adverse ruling by the European Court of Justice this month, the EU Parliament and Council can still amend the food regulation at issue and annul it just like it did in the Western Sahara case.
Wow. All right. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for joining us with more information about this case, and we're just going to have to wait until next week to see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, it is never fun to travel on a flight full of screaming babies. No. We both know that. But with a birth rate at the top of the OECD, Israel is notorious for having such scenarios.
Yeah, but it is exactly that got an American mom of two to start thinking.
It's never fun to travel on a flight full of screaming babies, but with a birth rate at the top of the OECD, Israel is notorious for having such scenarios. And that's what got an American mom of 2 to start thinking. During a flight to visit her brother in Tel Aviv, Alana Rubin from New York thought, wouldn't it be great if I could have a babysitter just for the plane ride? And just like that, Air Pair was born. Intentionally sounding like au pair, the app offers a range of payments to people who are already on the same flight as you and want to act as your babysitter. For now, though, Air Pair only operates between North America and Israel because of the great need and the more close-knit, trusting community that exists there amongst the Jews on these flights. Still, you just sign up on the website, get matched to someone who's been vetted, and then connect to arrange the specifics. Payment is also left up to the parties involved. But some sign on for just $20 an hour, some request their flight be covered, and some just volunteer because they want to do a good deed. Finally, if you thought only struggling parents had use for this idea, think again. Since the launch of the platform, elderly flyers, unaccompanied minors, and the disabled passengers have all reached out for a helping hand.
All right, now immigrating to Israel isn't easy to begin with, right, Aaron?
It's not.
But making the move can be a whole lot tougher when you're a kid. Still, though, every year, thousands of young ones make their way to Israel.
So what is their experience like, though? Well, joining us today to find out are Chezki Levy and his brother David, and Lilia Ben-Dahan Graver, who are all members of the Keep Olim Foundation, an incredible organization that helps new immigrants adjust their lives in the Holy Land. So first of all, where are you all from?
Where are you guys from?
Fill us in.
All right, so me and my brother David, we're from Atlanta, Georgia.
And what about you?
I am from Canada, from Montreal, and I made that there like 1 year ago.
Just 1 year ago, so you're even newer. You're even newer. All right, so why did your families decide to make Aliyah? You got to clap for that one.
I think it was because there wasn't so much good schools in America. I think that's the main reason.
What do you think of your
Another
schools?
reason is that in terms of spirituality, it's a lot easier to find it in Israel than in America.
So, so first of all, follow up, David. What do you think of the schools now that you're here?
Some of them are good, others are bad, but
It's good.
It's cool.
Pro and con everywhere. Then
it's cool.
And what about you? What did your
Well-
family say? Why did they want to move here?
Because my mom find like a husband over here, so we just moved, and it's always been my dream to come to Israel, so we made Aliyah.
So what was it? I guess what I want to know is because we also made Aliyah ourselves.
it's true.
What did you expect? What did you hear that it was going to be like here? And was it what you
To
expected?
be honest, I expected it was going to be like a fairy wonderland because growing up in a Jewish day school, I imagine you literally only hear positive things about Eretz Yisrael. And a lot of those things have been true.
Yeah.
So,
But
it's
it
interesting.
wasn't exactly what you pictured. Not quite.
No, definitely not.
We're going to get to that in a second. What about you?
Well, I expected that Israel would be like the most dream place, like it would be just the most beautiful place on earth, and it is the most beautiful place on earth. It is.
Wow. What
So-
is your favorite part about Israel?
Well, my favorite part is that I have lots of friends now, and finally my mom got married, so yes.
Your mother is going to love this interview.
Good.
Okay, well, our producer's asking if you can also find her a husband.
Yeah,
We'll
you
see
seem to
about
be a
that.
very good matchmaker, so we'll get back to you.
What about you guys? What is your favorite
matchmakers?
part?
No, not yet. Give it another 5 years.
There we go.
5 years. That's
Well,
really.
yeah. But what's your experience been? What are your favorite things? Least favorite things, maybe?
All right.
Favorite things.
Let's start with
first.
the
So
favorite
the
thing.
favorite things is making Aliyah has been such an impactful event on my life. I can't really just describe it within a few sentences. Although I suppose some of the greater things is that I'm definitely looking at life from a new perspective than as opposed to if I had stayed in America, I would have been a very different person.
In what
David,
way?
what about you?
Well, pros is definitely the food.
Ah,
Oh, yes.
yes.
What's your favorite food here?
I'd have to say shawarma or falafel.
Fair.
Yeah.
I suppose another good thing about this place is that here everybody is like you. As opposed to America, Jews are the minority. Here, Jews are the majority. So
Sure, it gives you a different sense.
Yeah.
but
it's
you
a
know, the people
vast
are very
cultural
diverse
change.
still. You
Yeah,
know,
they
right?
are very diverse, but like everybody has like basic traditions that they keep.
So my favorite thing that over here is that there's less snow because in Canada there was always storms, snow. Here it's more hot and it's like a dream.
But
Yeah.
all right, so I'm from
felt the
Detroit.
same
It's
way.
a cold area. We also get our snows.
Yeah.
So I get what you mean. But would you prefer it to be too cold or too hot?
Too cold.
Too cold.
We're from Atlanta.
See?
Really? See,
Yes.
I'm the opposite. I'm like you. I'm gonna high five on that. I love the warm weather here. So I guess, I mean, if there was any message that you guys could send to your friends back home who don't really know much about Israel, what would that be?
Well, to be honest,
Food's great.
back home is here in Israel. I don't really think of America as my home.
We've been here for 5 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, you've
Yeah.
been here a long time.
Yeah.
That's
so-
fair. Well, it's a beautiful thing to say that you feel that this is your home now because it's a tough transition. What about you, young man over there?
Well, first of all, the food is great. I have mentioned that previously a few times.
How many falafels have you had this week?
This week, only like one or two, but
Falafel is really good.
All right, that's not bad.
And what about you, Lilia?
I don't really remember a lot of things of Canada because here it's like a new start, like it's a start. So I don't really remember a lot of things about Canada.
Well, so you must be having good enough time that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, amazing, guys. All right, well, thank you so much for joining
It
us.
was awesome to have you here.
So
Hope you had
awesome to
fun.
have you and hear a different perspective.
All right, now finally, an Israeli startup is changing the meaning of new car smell, and it's not just a simple new fragrance.
That's because Moodify is replacing classic pine-scented air fresheners with something that they call an active scent, and it could just save your life. Similar to how white noise machine masks sounds, Moodify White eliminates a driver's perception of a bad smell by temporarily affecting how the brain interprets smell. And here's how it works. Essentially, the device generates molecules that send a different smell to the brain so that bad odors won't be recognizable. But Moodify isn't only working to confuse your nose. Moodify Red is actually designed to keep drivers awake 100% of the time, which company heads say could save your life. Today, cars can sound an alarm if they're drifting into another lane, but they can't keep the driver alert. Well, this product is designed to sense when a driver is nodding off and respond with a blast of an unpleasant scent that can wake up the driver. And the technology is to be stored underneath the car seat or in a ventilation system of the vehicle. The idea is that the car dealers would sell them at a cost of around $50 with 12 cartridges to be swapped out monthly. And the startup has already raised $1.6 million in October from Toyota. Quite the vote of confidence. The biggest, the best, the tallest. These are all the words that you might hear from the Guinness Book of World Records because they're the global authority on record breaking.
Absolutely, and just recently, Israel broke a new record. But here to tell us all about it is ILTV's correspondent, Shanna Fould.
All right,
Hi.
so what are some of the records that Israel has broken?
So the most recent record that was broken, British artist AIM72, he made a 267-meter graffiti stencil maze.
Awesome.
It's in Zichron, and it's very impressive and beautiful. Now, another one, we have the oldest soccer player in the world. Now, what does that mean? Oldest active player. He still plays. His name is Isaac Hayek. And there's two others. One is the tallest toy brick tower ever made.
Like Lego bricks?
And I remember that because we saw it last year. It was right here in Tel
was in
Aviv.
Rabin Square,
A
yeah.
couple blocks away from where we're sitting right now.
Yep, and the last one that I loved was the biggest Shabbat dinner ever that is so unique to Israel because I think we don't have a lot of competition on that front.
Yeah,
there were
that's
800
pretty
wine bottles, 2,000 challah rolls, 80 bottles of vodka, and 50
That
bottles
sounds
of
like
whiskey
my
for
nightmare.
this.
Imagine having to prepare
sounds
food
like-
for all of those people.
Sounds like the best dinner ever, as long as you're not the one planning it. Yeah.
Yeah. No thanks.
But that's amazing.
Kol
I'm sure we're
hakavod,
gonna- yeah.
Israel. Good job. We
Seriously.
definitely expect to break more records down
Yes.
the line.
But with that, Shanna, would you like to take us out away with the weather?
I would love to take us away with the weather. Thank you.
Have at it.
Okay, tonight will be clear to partly cloudy and cool with lows around 65 or 18 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect sunny skies and a slight rise in temperatures with highs of about 85 or 29 degrees Celsius.
All right, that is it for
it.
today's news, Aaron. Today's exchange rate is 3.51 shekels to the American dollar. I just didn't want you to start crying that it's over. And for more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. I'm Natasha Kirchuk.
And I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.